Now, Chris, we have to move on. We've got a breaking story here because the nurse Sandie Peggie says she will appeal her employment tribunal judgment when it comes after a certificate of correction was issued amid complaints that a quote used in Monday's ruling was, quote, completely made up. Well, Sandie took action after being put on special leave following a row with a transgender medic. And I'm joined now by GB News' Scotland reporter Tony Maguire. Tony, you have a guest for us there. Over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Martin. Yeah, that's pretty much a fantastic summary there. Sandie Peggie and her lawyer, Margaret Gribben, are going to appeal the decision from Judge Sandy Kemp. That came out earlier on this week. But, of course, today that big story was that there was words that had been misquoted from the Supreme Court decision. Now, somebody who knows a thing or two about misquotes is Maya Forstater from Sex Matters. Maya, thank you for talking to GB News this afternoon. Tell me about the events that took place today, really, and the revealing of those misquotes appearing in her judgment.
Yesterday, I think, reading through the judgment, I found, I obviously looked for my name and looked for where my judgment was referenced, and there was a quote that was cited as being from my Employment Appeal Tribunal that was completely made up, that did not exist anywhere. So I tweeted that and it got some attention, and this morning they've issued a new judgment and they've replaced that quote with another one, but they've given no explanation as to how that happened, and it's very unusual for something like this to happen. And also other people have noticed other misquotes that are still in the judgment that haven't been fixed.
Of course, one of them, I think, was the word some women. The words some women were in there instead of trans women, which, depending obviously on the context, could completely change the sentence. Do you think this is just a lack of oversight or a steering of a narrative, or...?
Yeah, it says such women instead of trans women. All of the errors go in one direction, and the direction is to undermine the Supreme Court's judgment and try and get round it. So they're not just random errors, they are errors that are going in a particular direction. And as I said, it's completely extraordinary to have misquotes in a judgment from a court.
Do you think it's quite fair to say, though, that the decision to appeal didn't really rest on that? Obviously, as the decision sort of was allowed to ferment over the course of the week, the dissatisfaction was very much growing from gender critical groups, so much so that it's actually got quite a lot of pushback now, and that it was too favourable for Dr. Upton and indeed for NHS Fife. Would you say that's quite an accurate description of how the last 72 hours have gone?
Yes, I mean, it took people quite a long time, to read the 300-page judgment. Sandie Peggie did win against NHS Fife. They harassed her, but the judgment found that it wasn't necessarily unlawful to allow men into women's changing rooms in the first place. And this flies in the face of what the Supreme Court judgment said. And so we all hoped that Sandie Peggie would appeal. I mean, I've been through it. I've been through a 4-year employment tribunal and appeal process, and it's grueling and difficult on the individual and the family, but she has a great legal team. And then what we heard today is that they've got Ben Cooper KC, who was my lawyer in my employment appeal tribunal and also represented Sex Matters in the Supreme Court. So we think she's got a great team.
Fantastic. Well, it does sound like the team Sandie Peggie is very much growing. We're still going to wait and hear, but over the next couple of weeks, I think I'll be looking forward to hearing from Nurse Sandie Peggie herself here in GB News.
Thank you, Tony Maguire and Maya Forstater there, surrounded by the beautiful colours, of course, of the suffragettes on those balloons. Thank you both very much indeed.